You told us about Mara Pandit's father putting up Ganapati Muni.
Yes.
Could you share a little more words on that? Because
yes,
it's very important to me.
Pundalik, Madhav's father was named after an old saint of yours, Pundalik. Pundalik was a great devotee of Vitthal, which is a form of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna. Vitthal is called because Sri Krishna came when he called, this devotee called, but at that time he was giving bath to his parents because he was looking after his old parents, this Pundalik. And then he said they were outside, it's primitive, they didn't have bathrooms. In the courtyard of the house, partly covered, he was giving the bath, and then the Lord appears. Then he says, how can he? The parents both are wet. So, but the Lord has been, so there was a brick near him. So a brick he puts there, and Vitthal stands on it. That Vitthal, so that his feet may not get wet. You understand? So he is called the one who stands on the brick. Sri Krishna, when he comes, when he is waiting, he puts it, because there is nothing to hold on to. So he puts his hands on his waist and he stands on the brick. So this Vitthal, and it is a very famous place of pilgrimage, Pandharpur in Maharashtra. So many saints around, you see. And even now, people go on pilgrimage on foot from there, singing the old songs from the medieval ages, Varkaris. And recently that phase was over and TV was showing us on the way they sing and dance and then they go, because in Sri Krishna cult it is always like that. And how happy they look. And now Pundalik, Sri Madhav's father was named after that. Pundalik and Pandit. He was a lawyer, very successful lawyer, and then a landowner owning very large property. He was very wealthy. And quite aristocratic type, His picture appears in one of the books written by Madhav's niece about her family. Yes. And he was a philanthropist, so the British government also at that time decorated him with titles and all that. Just as we have now Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, all those are the titles given by our government after independence. So Rai Bahadur, Rai Sahib, Rai Bahadur, Diwan Bahadur, and so on. There was a whole gradation. So he was truly a very big man. And someone told Ganapati Muni wanted a place to stay, and he was quite new to the place. He was going from place to place. But when he came to Sirsi, Madhav's birthplace, it's a very ancient place, Sirsi.
How old was Ganapati Muni then?
I have his life. His life is that.
20s or 30s?
He may have been in early 30s, but I'll make sure, because a friend of mine has borrowed that book. But I can always let you know, because these were all some of Madhav's books, which there was no place there at that time. He gave me and I stored in my house. Now a friend of mine who is interested in Ganapati Muni, who is from Andhra, that girl is from Andhra. She has borrowed that life of Ganapati Muni, written by some professor or something. I myself haven't read the book, otherwise I wouldn't have, but I was busy with all these changes. So I said to myself, let her read in the meanwhile. So she just told me that it was such a wonderful book. She was very glad. I said, please don't forget to return it to me, because I may forget to whom I have lent it, because I haven't read it myself. That it has been inscribed by the author of that book. So I think we have to keep it, personally. The what I remember from an article which I read was this, that he was in search of a place to sit in tapas, undisturbed by people. Because by that time he was surrounded by disciples and busy with training them and all that. And suddenly he felt, now enough, I want to do my tapas. Because that has taken a back seat now, that's most important. So without telling them, he must have given them some instructions to follow during his absence, but he didn't tell anybody where he was going. And they don't always stay in the same place as he, they are householders living in different places, the Brahmins. And he just disappeared one day. Whether he said anything to his family, he had wife and son or something like that. Everybody was married off in those days at a certain age, very early age they were married off. It was the custom in society. The fourth stage is when you renounced everything and became a sannyasi. Only a few chose first brahmacharya and then didn't go through the middle stages of the householder. So he had a husband or someone, but he didn't tell anyone, disappeared. And he was going from place to place, walking on foot, I think. Padayatra, it is called. Yatra with walking, pada is foot. Then he came to know, he felt like staying in Sirsi, in that area. He said it was a very beautiful place and charged with something else, because it's an ancient place. Then, seeing his appearance and so on, some young boys got interested in him. And they happened to be friends of Sundar Pandit, that is one of Madhav's older brothers. Pundalik Pandit's son, Sundar Pandit. Older than Sundar Pandit, there were two brothers, but they were not specially interested in spirituality. But Sundar Pandit, since childhood, was interested. So he had a few friends of his own age who were interested in such things, and they met every sadhu or saint who passed by. Yes, because many sadhus and saints, it was the custom, the sadhu was expected not to stay for more than 3 days in one place. That is to prevent them from getting attached to possessions and other things. 3 days they would be in one place, then they would move on. Only during the 4-month rainy season that is there on the west coast there, they stayed in one place 4 months. Then they got shelter near a temple. At the temple, people gave them shelter, or some rich man of the place arranged for their lodging somewhere where they could stay, observing all the rituals and others. They continued to observe those rituals, but staying in one place. So Madhav's father used to give that garden house to such people. Anyone who needed such a place would be told that this man has got, and he is very generous and he likes to receive spiritual people. So Sundar Pandit came to know, and so Sundar Pandit thought that after seeing Ganpati Muni, he felt that this was not just an ordinary sadhu. So he requested his father to give a place to them, and it was arranged. And he was taken there. And there he was supplied with, Madhav's mother would send with servants or with Sundar Pandit himself whatever was needed for the household, for the daily needs. Fruit, flowers, and even other sattvic food, maybe rice and other grains also were sent there. And he some boy was supplied to him also as cook, who wouldn't disturb and who was used to looking after holy men.
Did mother know him?
Not at that time. Because Madhav, I think, was very young at that time. And when this Ganapati Muni was taken to his father, or whether his father went and saw him and Sundar Pandit, so that detail has not been given in that. But anyway, Madhav was a small boy. And
Met
so,
him later?
yes, he met him because when Kapali Shastri came, then he met him. You see, when Madhav was about 9 years old, I think Kapali Shastri met him. See, when this gentleman had disappeared, the Muni had disappeared, everyone was wishing, and Kapali Shastri took it upon himself to search for him, to find him. Even otherwise, he missed him a lot, he loved him a lot. So he went searching for him and inquiring, describing him, what he would look like. Maybe there was a photograph also, I don't know. In those days, some primitive, old style cameras were there. They said, yes, he has passed this way, and that search brought him to Sirsi. At Sirsi, his search ended. And then he found out where in Sirsi could this guru, his guru may be. Then he came to know that these 2-3 young boys had met him, and he went and met them. And they said, yes, he's there and he's lodged in that place. We'll take you to him. And so they took him to him.
Is that when he became the teacher of Kapali Shastri?
No, he became the teacher of Kapali Shastri when Kapali Shastri was in his teens. When Kapali Shastri was doing his puja in the shore temple of the Devi near his home, after Kapali Shastri had received the Tantric Diksha from his father. Kapali Shastri had received the Tantric Diksha from his father when he was a boy, when ready to receive his have the thread ceremony and have the Diksha of the Gayatri Mantra. Every Brahmin boy is given that mantra, Gayatri Mantra, whether Tantric or not. Mother was given by his father. The father gives to the son. He whispers it in the ear of the this father gives to the son, and I think perhaps during some such ceremony, but Kapali Shastri's father not only gave him the Gayatri Mantra, he also initiated him, whether simultaneously or a little some time afterwards, he was initiated into the Tantric path, the right-handed path. So Kapali Shastri's first guru, the first mentor, was his own father. But the father just passed on the traditional things to him and let him practice. And every day Kapali Shastri would go to the shore temple near him. His house was near the beach, and the temple was a shore temple of the goddess. And the Tantrics, worship the goddess mainly. So he would go every day and then recite some mantras that the father gave him, and he would do the puja and come back. But one day when he was doing the puja, he heard a ringing voice reciting verse after verse on the Devi. No paper or anything. He looked at the man and he was very surprised. He was a young man, much younger than him, but he was still young. There was such a glow on the face of Ganapati Muni. His name officially was Ganapati Shastri. Ganapati Shastri. Shastri is the one who is well versed in Shastra, scriptures, and he can teach others. So he was Shastri, he was a teacher. or a professor of the ancient times. And Ganapati Shastri, Muni was the title given to him later because he was like a rishi. Muni, rishi, these are tapasvi. These titles are given to those who go and do tapas in the forest. So, Muni is not given the title to any householder, but he was treated like that because he was a tapasvi, the one who did tapas. So, he fell at his feet. He felt that this would be his guru, Ganapati Muni. And Ganapati Muni looked at this boy and he saw the potentialities, spiritual potential, and immediately accepted him. And that is how his relationship with the Ganapati Muni started when he was still in his early or mid-teens, but not late teens, early or mid-teens. Whether he was a 12-year-old boy or 14-year-old boy, that I have to see. But he was that young when he accepted Ganapati Muni as his guru. Yeah. He was faithful to him until he came to Mother and Sri Aurobindo.
Could you tell us? I've heard that Ganapati Muni met Mother.
Yes, saw met Mother. You see, when Kapali Shastri came, he stayed with his guru for a while in that house. And then he also would come and meet Madhav's father because Madhav's father had helped his guru and all that. He met his father. When Kapali Shastri met Madhav's father, and Sundar Pandit brought him to his father, his Madhav's mother and Madhav were also happened to be there at that time. And when they saw Kapali Shastri, Sundar Pandit as well as Madhav's mother felt an shock, an instant recognition there was when they saw Kapali Shastri, which they had not felt on seeing the Muni. They saw that he was great and they had devotion for him, bhakti. But when they saw Kapali Shastri, there was a recognition that they belonged together, you see. They felt that with the disciple. Now I can see why, because Kapali Shastri was already in touch with Sri Aurobindo.
Already?
In touch with Sri Aurobindo. Because he was reading the Arya. He was reading the Arya and he was reading Sri Aurobindo's writings. Kapali Shastri was a patriot and Sri Aurobindo was a freedom fighter. He had started admiring Sri Aurobindo, though he had not thought of him as a guru or something. I think that happened when more experiences came. So Kapali Shastri had already met Sri Aurobindo. So I think when Kapali Shastri came and saw Madhav's mother with Madhav and Sundar Pandit, to Sundar Pandit and Madhav's mother, Kapali Shastri became their guide. Kapali Shastri saw Madhav. He felt something, but he didn't say anything because it was maybe too soon to say something. But Ganapati Muni told Kapali Shastri. You see, Kapali Shastri, exactly on which particular day did Ganapati Muni see Madhav? That I would come to know only through the papers that Kapali Shastri wrote. It won't be even in the biography of Ganapati Muni written by someone else. Someone else who didn't know Madhav, you see. Yes. So they saw when he saw something must have impressed him, because he told Kapali Shastri when they were leaving Sirsi to go back to his house. Ganapati Muni returned to his home because Kapali Shastri stayed there long enough until he succeeded in taking back his guru to his native place, and where so many others were waiting for him. So when he agreed and went, then he told him, "What this boy? There is a light around his head. There is a light around his head." Madhav's head. Yes, Madhav's head. Because he was leaving, and Kapali Shastri told Sundar Pandit about it, because Kapali Shastri was also leaving. He told Sundar Pandit that Ganapati Muni had told him this, and so he should watch over his young brother, and anything that happened that of significant, he should report to Kapali Shastri. So that was the arrangement.
When did Kapali Shastri first see Mother? Or did he see Sri Aurobindo also?
He saw Sri Aurobindo first. Whether he saw Mother at that time, I don't know. It was in 1917 that he met Sri Aurobindo. Mother was not there at that time. He met Mother afterwards. Kapali Shastri, in the meantime, was so fascinated by the articles in the Arya, which was regularly he was getting. First, a shopkeeper had given it to him. "This has come to me, so you can take it." And seeing it, Kapali Shastri, where it was available, Kapali Shastri subscribed for the magazine. And so he was getting a copy every month. And he read it again and again every day for the whole month, from first article to the last article, until the next issue came. He was really surprised that what he and Ganapati Muni had both felt about the Veda and the Upanishad and the scriptures, the revelations that they had. Well, they found them corroborated in Sri Aurobindo's writings, which meant that Sri Aurobindo also had seen the same things. Now they were naturally struck by this. See, then they found out about Sri Aurobindo. Someone who had been brought up in England, who had known so little of Sanskrit. After coming to India, he had started the Sanskrit. That he could see the secret of the Veda. These articles appeared under the heading, "The Secret of the Veda." Kapali Shastri was simply struck dumb, felt this must be a great soul to have these revelations without being taught by anyone, having any contact with the Sanskritists. How could he understand Vedic Sanskrit? That time Sri Aurobindo saw that when he was reading that, as he was writing on the wall, the various deities appeared to him and showed him the significance. Sri Aurobindo had it straight from the deities themselves. Yeah. No human teacher regarding our scriptures.
Kapali Shastri wrote very beautifully about Mother.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. You see, Kapali Shastri, after then he kept on coming, and during one of his visits, he came to know that the mother had come back, and she was standing. He heard about her, so he asked for an interview with Mother. Naturally, when he saw her, he felt that this was the Divine Mother herself taking a woman's form. He felt that this was the Divine Mother in a physical body. But at that time he was still young and he was going to keep very quiet about it because he wanted to have it from Sri Aurobindo himself. His opinion was not what mattered. He wrote to mother asking who the mother was. Because he felt that mother was, something like that. To that, mother sent those chapters that he wrote on the 4 aspects of the mother, and then some pages of the book. The mother was not a book written as a book. He wrote different chapters and then he sent them to different people. The 4 aspects of the mother, especially that chapter, is sent to Pali Shastra as his answer. He had written that book, you see. Whether it had been printed by that time or was going to be printed at that time, I don't know. But he had written them as separate chapters and given to disciples who wanted to know who the mother was. Instead of telling each one the mother is his mother, that he had written that so beautifully. And he sent those. To Kapali Shastri, it was a confirmation of his own experience. And he took whatever Sri Aurobindo said literally. Every word was true for him. He never wavered in his faith from first to last.
When did Ganapati Muni meet mother?
See, Ganapati Muni, Kapali Shastri joined the ashram. He wanted to join the ashram. He joined the ashram. And Ganapati Muni was really surprised. You see, a guru does feel surprised when his disciple goes to another guru.
Yeah.
Because in between, Ganapati Muni had met Ramana Maharshi, who was known as Brahmana Swami in Tirunamale, and given him the name Ramana Maharshi. From his name Venkataraman. Venkataraman they say, South Indians, but Venkataraman. And it is the name of Vishnu. So Venkataramana, so he said, you are Ramana Maharshi. You are a Maharshi. You are Maharshi Ramana. So that name stick. And since then, Ganapati Muni would go very often to sit with Ramana Maharshi, who had great regard for Ganapati Muni. Ramana Maharshi had regard for Ganapati Muni. And he would refer to him as Ganapati Muni. So one named the other Maharshi, and the other one named him Muni. They felt like brothers. They behaved like brothers. That's what a disciple of Ramana Maharshi told me. God, I had visited Ramana Ashram twice when the Maharshi was there and meditated in his presence.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Vasanti.
Yeah.
What was it like in his presence?
Yes, I'll explain that to you. You see, I was in search of Sri Aurobindo. Didn't know in which form he would come, which form he would be there. I only knew that it would be a spiritual man. As I said last time, I knew it would not be as a prince that he would come. Like Sri Ram, Sri Krishna, and like Buddha or Mahavir. They were all princes. That this time, I said, he would be a yogi, a saint. That was the only indication I had, nothing else. So I began to look at, last time I told you, I began to look at each sadhu and each saint I met. Or whoever was in the vicinity, any great spiritual being, I went and saw. My mother understood I was searching for something she knew that I was very sure about what I was going to find. And she took me. She herself was interested in the saints and sages. So she took me there. And when father was transferred to Cuddalore, to the east coast, though a Bombay man, I was coming closer to discovering Sri Aurobindo. Cuddalore was just 17 miles south of Pondicherry. Pondicherry, French India, and that British India. From there, my father brought us children to visit French India for a holiday. French was his second language at college. For English and French, he had won gold and silver medals. So he felt he would be happy to practice his French here. So we all started in our car, and we came. It took us about half an hour. There was not much traffic. Their roads were good. Half an hour. Beautiful things. Green, 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 green on every side. Memorable journey. And so we came, and I remember coming close as we came from the south. We passed through the park opposite the government house. There were very big flowering trees and many things there. The park was much greener. So we passed that park. Even as we came to that park, I began to feel something different, which I couldn't understand, because I was 11 years old at that time.
You were?
11 years old.
11 years old.
11 years old. My brother was 9, the one who stayed here, and Jayanti was just 5. She was in a tiny, so small and with a frock.
So you felt something, but you couldn't.
No, I felt as we were nearing, I felt I was approaching something, some special region, some special place. I didn't know, I knew nothing about French India. I didn't know French myself. So as we came, we must have come to the ashram area, not knowing that the ashram was there. There was no board outside, and no people there, because it was deserted, the ashram. There were no auto rickshaws, nothing at all. Perhaps even when you came, there was very little of it. So there was nothing to mark that place. It seemed like a building like the others. But I just wondered, but all the time we were being taken this side, taken that side for sightseeing. So we were busy, and we were children. And then in those days there was the statue of Jeanne of Arc was there on the beach. It had a special park, and it was all with the approach to it inside the compound was all with pebbles, beautiful pebbles. And between the pebbles and the statue of Jeanne of Arc, there was water. It was like a little pond. Very nice, beautiful pool-like thing. So you felt as if the statue was standing in the middle of the water, though it was not standing in water. It had more of bricks and more of those tiles, so it was standing a little higher. But so my mother had prepared something from moong dal, moong bean, moong bean she had made, seasoned it, and she gave us that, and we had some bread and some chapatis and all, which she had homemade. She had packed and brought. We sat there and we ate the picnic. Even now I remember. The food was delicious, the surroundings were delicious. Again, I felt something very, very special, but couldn't tell what. I saw the Bay of Bengal. I saw this Bay of Bengal was just across the street from that. So from there we came, and the rays of the sun started coming, in slanting. So it was approaching the evening, and my great uncle, who had accompanied me, the one who was in Jodhpur when Sri Aurobindo was in Baroda. I think I told about, did I speak about it last time? When Sri Aurobindo, as a young man, was teaching at the Maharaja's college there, and at the same time had become PA to the Maharaja. The Maharaja had taken him as his PA.
Yes.
Was I the ICS man, you see? Yes. Man with ICS training, with so much experience, with so much teaching about administration and this and that. Fully trained man. PA, and he used to write speeches for the Maharaja of Baroda. Then my great uncle also, he was teaching at Maharaja's college in Jodhpur, Rajasthan. And the Maharaja of Jodhpur liked my great uncle very much. He also was in his 20s, and he took him as his advisor. He was finance secretary plus advisor to the royal family. Actually, royal family, they put it like that. The Maharaja himself took his services. And he accompanied the Maharaja to the Maharaja's conferences, the conferences which Maharajas held from time to time. In the presence of the British regent, of course. The regent would be there to see that they didn't trespass, that they didn't break the rules laid down by the British, you see. Above the Maharaja was the regents placed by the British government in every state, though he didn't interfere with the internal affairs of the. He was concerned only with the loyalty of the Maharaja to the British government. So there was a treaty there between the Maharajas and the British. After fighting with many and taking over the kingdoms, they found it more profitable to let the Maharajas get the revenue from the subjects and then from that give something to the Viceroy. So why then less trouble for them, isn't that so? They were very clever, you see, the British were very clever people. So the British regent would be there. And every time they found that the speeches that the Maharaja of Baroda gave, extraordinary. There were so many facts and figures and all, and so much that was what would be useful for the administration. And at the same time, the English was such. So they wondered how this Maharaja was writing such wonderful speeches. My great uncle made a few inquiries and then found out that the Maharaja had a PA who was an ICS person straight from England, a young man who wrote those speeches for him. So my great uncle's interest in that young man increased. Now, later he followed the young man's career, even that after 12 years or 13 years, the young man had left and gone to Calcutta to join the freedom movement openly. He followed his career from that until Sri Aurobindo's disappearance from Calcutta. So he said to my father, I think, because he had heard after that he had settled in Pondicherry, after Sri Aurobindo revealed himself after a certain time, not immediately. Immediately Sri Aurobindo arrived here, he didn't reveal his presence here later. So my great uncle said, I think Arvind Ghosh, that's the way he was known, Arvind Ghosh has his ashram here. And so immediately my father, ready to oblige an elder, you see, elders were so respected by the younger ones in our culture there at that time. So he said, yes, we'll inquire. So he inquired from one of the supervisors who had accompanied him, engineers and supervisors and other underlings. So he asked him. The young man said, yes, the ashram is here and it is very close to the beach, close to where we are. We were on the beach and from there, the same street, the ashram we came to. The ashram was on Rue de la Marine, that is Marine Street. See it? So Rue de la Marine, we arrived there. And that is how I came to know that Sri Ravinda Ghosh's ashram was here. Even then, I was not quite sure what was happening. I was a little tired, roaming and all that, not very, being a weak person. Then we were made to stand outside the gate. No one, children under 12 was not permitted, and only my great uncle, father went. I just peeped a little from the door, from the gate. I saw two young men wearing the Bengali dhoti, that dhila dhoti, in a loose way they wear it. And then long hair, shoulder length, and meditative eyes. That was my first darshan of the sadhaks. Two young men just sitting like that with meditative eyes, watching the gate. And when they went, they got up and they were very polite. I could catch only a few words. Our Guru is in solitude as Ekantwas. He gives darshan only 4 times a year. But prior permission has to be got before one can have his darshan. You have to write to the ashram and to the mother, and the mother will give the permission. You can 4 times a year. Oh, my father went only 4 times a year, and we have come all the way over. Yes, my great uncle, he knew when he was in Jodhpur, when they were young, he's so keen on seeing him. You see, they felt a little. My great uncle didn't allow my father to put pressure on those young men. They looked a little helpless, but very politely not saying. So he said, no, let it be Prabhakar. Prabhakar was my father's name. Prabhakar is Bhatti's name, you know. Prabhakar is the name of Bhatti, whom you have interviewed, no?
Yes.
Bhatti's name is Prabhakar Pantulu. Prabhakar Pantulu.
Yes.
Yes. Now this Pantulu is a very Brahminical name among the Andhras. He is a Telugu man. Now here, he told my father, no, no Prabhakar, let it be. No. We'll come another day. And then he came out. We came out. That was my first. But even as I said, I was impressed by those young men, and I felt great familiarity, a feeling of great familiarity as I looked at that path which went this way to the right and saw the crotons and other things, cactus or something that there at the doorway on the right near the thing. And I looked at these young men. I somehow felt a strange familiarity, as if I belonged there.
Who were the 2 personalities?
I didn't know them because they were new.
Okay.
I didn't know who they were. Later, as we came more times, I saw some others there whom I recognized later. For instance, I saw Aster. I saw Kumud. I saw one of Prithvi Singh's daughters, maybe Sujata. And a few people I saw, and some others whom I met later on. But it was my first visit and not inside. Later we came and Nolinida did everything for us. Yeah. We had the good fortune of having an old sadhak who lived upstairs in the library house called Dr. Rajangam. Dr. Rajangam was one of the early disciples of Sri.
I've heard of him.
Dr. Rajangam somehow befriended my father. And he took my father to Nolinida and asked if permission could be granted to see mother. So we afterwards had special darshan for our family upstairs. All those things came before getting Sri Aurobindo's darshan. Before our visits there didn't coincide with the darshan days, so we had to wait.
When did Kapali Shastri first see Mother?
Mother,
When did Kapali Shastri first see Mother?
you see, he was coming and going. He must have seen Mother after she settled here in 1920, after the second coming. That in his Kapali Shastri's notes and papers, he has written about his meetings with Mother beautifully. He was writing a diary. Kapali Shastri's notes and papers, that volume is part of collected works of Kapali Shastri, which is there with the sadhana. They've got copies.
Oh, good. I want to read them.
You can always read.
I read Flame of White Light
Yes, that was written much later.
much later.
It was prepared by Madhav, in fact.
Oh,
He had written various things about Mother, and if Madhav wanted on some special day that there should be a booklet where picture on one side and the comments of Mother, so something that Kapali Shastri wrote, beautiful things about Mother, put on the other side. He proposed the idea to Mother. Mother gave the blessings, and then only was the booklet done. Whether Kapali Shastri was at that time alive, I don't know. When the booklet came.
I think Alina wanted to know something about when Madhav left his body. You were in America, right?
No, when Madhav left his body, he left in Madras.
No, but you were first in America for a while.
We were first in America when it was discovered that he had heart problem. He didn't have a real attack, but it was like an attack. You see, it was somehow controlled by Mother, but it was like an attack. But Dr. Bhanu Shah later told us that we were at the later told us when we went to her place later that she dreamt that a very big dark being had come. Then she got afraid.
And
She was afraid because she had immediately the feeling that he had come to take attack Madhu. She was practicing this Kriya Yoga of Paramahansa Yogananda. They do various kinds of things and some occult powers also they get. When she had that dream, she was shocked. When we were there for a whole month, once we were there, she wanted Madhav to read out and explain Savitri to her every morning before she went to the hospital. Savitri, though she was the disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. And Madhav did that for her. She was our host and she looked after us so well. And even when Madhav was ill again, she kept him with him some 3 weeks or so. 3 weeks or something like that. From her place, we went on the first lap of our journey back to India, to England. But he was quite ill. But we know he was quite ill because it was an attack.
wasn't it?
He himself didn't see the dark being because in his consciousness at that time only Sri Aurobindo and Mother lived. If some other attack comes or whatever it is, older sadhaks felt, and even I feel like that. It is our Guru's business, you see.
Oh.
Because do we have the power to fight with these beings, asuric beings? We don't have. So it is their business to keep us alive in the physical body or not, for them to decide. So when I had some premonition of an attack myself 3 years ago or something like that, sometime after I'd given you my interviews, when I had the premonition, I had the same feeling. Kapali Shastri had told mother a little before he passed away, whether in the body or outside, I'm yours. He was ill, they couldn't really find out what the illness was. The only eczema was seen, the feet were attacked. Of course, the feet are the weakest part, lower parts are the weakest. So the feet had been attacked. So it came in the form of eczema. Suffered very much through it. But our Napenda was there, Dr. Napenda. He would treat it and all that. Some painkillers were given. But somehow he felt ill. He felt ill because one said he was coming back from the ashram. After being to the ashram, Pranam, he passed the dispensary. In order to go to the after from the ashram, you turn like that and you have to pass the dispensary. Kapali Shastri felt a spear entering his chest. It was not physical. He felt a spear attacking him in the chest, the heart, and he knew that he had been attacked. From that day, he was really ill. He was really ill. But the heart had been attacked, you see. And then he couldn't go to the ashram afterwards, even with Madhu's support. He was there, and most of the time he spent in meditation or remaining in that. Even when his eyes were open, in a kind of an open thing, he was in a different state. Mother looked after him. Mother's mother and sister who lived in another house would come and spend time with him. He was looked after, but they didn't disturb him. He was constantly meditating on his chosen deity was Sri Aurobindo. So you see, spear, and mother also knew about it. Yes, but mother's principle and his principle was this, that one should not allow any negative thought in the presence of that person. There should be no negative thought about death or anything. That should not be allowed to enter. That was the way they dealt with such thing in the occult way. So mother also was very sensitive. If someone was in her presence and looking at her emaciated body, she they thought of the end, you see, of the end coming to her. Afterwards, she expressed her displeasure to him. Yes. She did. There should be no negative thoughts, because she was fighting against it, and no one around her should be open to that thought. So it is not a question of fear, it's a matter of, their tactics are different, I find. In the spiritual plane, the tactics are different. So, Madhu requested mother whether he could bring Kapali Shastri to the gate of his house when mother passed that way to the tennis ground in the afternoon. And mother said yes. So then they knew when mother's car would come in, because they stood near the gate, and they saw the car coming from the garage was on the back balcony street. So the same balcony street, the car came, mother stopped, and the window glass was lowered, and slightly the door was also open, and Kapali Shastri bowed down to mother in the seat, and mother blessed him, clapped her hands over his head for quite some time, and blessed him well. And only once when she looked at him, he also looked at her. She was, of course, love and compassion personified when she did that. And he was adoration and love personified, surrender. So in that mood they looked at each other and he said just one sentence, in the body or outside, I'm yours. In this way he let her know that he knew that the end was near. And mother went. After that he turned more inward, and then the August 15th came. The day that was Sri Aurobindo's birthday. August, I think it was 1953, I think. 3 years after Sri Aurobindo had left his body. The whole day, you see, darshan lines were passing and all, but he was meditative. Mother saw that he was more and more meditative. So after, and at night also, he was meditative. After giving some simple food or something to drink for him, he lay down. Madhav's bed, his Kapali Shastri's room was their puja room now, that is their puja room.
Yes,
The middle room,
I've
yes.
seen the chair.
Yes,
We've both
yes,
seen the chair.
yes. Just inside that was Madhav's room, just below that. There, this side of that step was Madhav's bed, that side was his. So only a few feet separated him. Because Madhav wanted to know whether anything happened. So after that, Madhav put him to bed, he blessed him, and then he went into meditation again. After some time, Madhav got up and went to see if he was all right. He seemed to be still in meditation, peacefully meditating. And after some hours, when Madhav again went to see him, he saw that he was gone. No trouble, no sound, no nothing. From samadhi, from the state of samadhi, he went to the other world of the samadhi. He went to the samadhi. On the night of Sri Aurobindo's birthday, on the very night of his birthday, he passed away. Because they didn't know exactly at what time he passed away. It was supposed to be the night after midnight, so it is said 16th August. But he really passed away on the night of the 15th. His adored Sri Aurobindo in such a way, and in his Sanskrit hymns, what words he has used. Extraordinary.
You were with Madhav when he left his body? You were there?
I was in the city, but other people, only the boys, he was in intensive care unit. He had chosen the boys, those who could support him. The others were not allowed to go inside. I see you. You see. And I also didn't persist. First of all, I didn't have to be physically near. That I confide only now. Ram and I went. Ram who came from America and then later settled down here. And he was in the dispensary, helping the dispensary, engineer. Ram and I. First when Madhav went, it was only, they said, for 3 days of test. Dr. Dilip Datta said, have a test and everything there. So 3 days, 1 day to go there, rest. Next day, all the tests to be over. And then next day, perhaps just one test or something, and then come back to Pondicherry. So he said, he chose the men who were to accompany him. Except Shraddhalu, the others were all doctors.
They were all doctors?
Yes. So now tell me, he told us 3 women. He said, I'll become I'm taking them with me. They will look after me. See. Could we have supported him? Could we have left him? Maybe Sadhana could have. She was strong at that time. But still, he had chosen this. Dr. Kiran, Dr. Ashok Das, who later became superintendent of Jipmer, who was already in a high position there. And his brother was also a doctor, who is in Malaysia now. And except 5 people, only Shraddhalu was not a doctor. But representing the family and representing all, and Shraddhalu was a tall, strong boy, the youngest among them. So he took Shraddhalu with him and the other 4, all doctors. So he had chosen his team. Then how could we say, no, then but in that way? And I think he didn't want women near him at that time. We would suffer a lot. We were so attached to him. And we women, we were more emotional, you see. He just wanted that kind of peace and silence around him, which the boys would have been ready to give him. But I was worried about it, and then Ram also felt left out. Ram also would have gone with them, but they found the seats were such that there was no place for one more boy. He said, Ram, you stay back. Because he was the only one, though he was called doctor, he was not medical doctor. He told him, I'm coming in 3 days, you be here. Ram was in tears, but he just managed to control himself. So I arranged one of the ashram cars, a taxi, and Ram and I went the next day. Because at that time my father lived in Chennai, Madras. He had a very nice house. My father and my sister lived in a house there. So we had a place to stay there. So we stayed there. Madhav stayed in the house of Mahendra Bajoria, a businessman who had a factory and everything there, and Jayant also was employed there. He was his assistant. Jayant was assistant to Mahendra Bajoria, because Mahendra Bajoria was a great friend of Gopal Bhattacharya, the international secretary of Sri Aurobindo Society. Whether you know him or don't. Jayant was, Madhav was there with them. All the five with Madhav were lodged at Mahendra Bajoria's bungalow, very big house. My father also had a fairly big house, but he was very old, and Ram and I were received there.
How long were you with Madhav? How many years?
How many years? See, I started working with him maybe after I left Midhanand's library. Before that, I was working in the library in the ashram main building itself. And I was going through Nolinida. So his assistant and I were bound to meet. And I knew his mother and sister because they are also Saraswats, Konkani speaking like me. So someone took me, sometimes you may like to meet people from your own region and like to talk. And Madhav's mother was wonderful to me. She would say, come every Sunday, tell me what you'd like to eat, I'll prepare it for you. She was very young, she was youthful in her, but she was interested in everything. Even in the latest invention or whatever, she was interested in everything, very lively like a girl. She used to make sweets for Sri Aurobindo once a week and send them up. Yeah. Madhav's mother's Lakshmi.
We were reading about the supramental ship.
Yes.
That Mother speaks about.
Yes. She saw Paru. Mother had mentioned Paru was there, yes.
Mother mentioned that Paru was there in that ship.
No, I didn't see the supramental ship, but I see the subtle ashram. I see it even now.
Can
See
you
this.
describe?
The subtle ashram is just like that. Once Nolini was asked, mother says that the subtle ashram in which all Purani ji has been gone there and Pavitra has gone there, Amrita has gone there. They are all there with them. I see them with her because sometimes I go there. So even when I quit my body and go there, it won't be new to me, you see. It won't be.
Oh.
Yeah. We're just stepping from one world into the other. Once Nolini said, where is it? He just said, because he pointed at her office and just above that. Above that he said, So I said, the queen with all her men is there, you know. There's a proverb in English, the king and all his men. So the queen with all her men is there, still watching over the ashram. And people said the trustees and then the trust and this and that. I said, yes, the trustees are the human instruments here. They are our brothers. I've known them all along. So we are all human. Yes, we have our imperfections. If we had been perfect, then we would be Jivan Muktas, you know. Liberated souls, which we are not. We have our imperfections. So no use pointing fingers at each other. We know we are imperfect. But the one who really manages and administers the ashram, she is still up there. She is there with all her men around her. All her lieutenants are there. Once she had mentioned at that time to Mother, Kapali came to me yesterday. She said, he was so luminous, he was so shining, he was so healthy, so happy. She appeared to her, he came to her because she wanted to know about a certain mantra or a certain word, you know. She wanted to know. And immediately he came to her because he was always at her service. When she told him, he said, all that I have of Sanskrit knowledge, Mother, I'll just pass on to you, you know. It is like transferring the matter from one computer to the other or one machine to the other. And she said he did it. He gave all of it to me. She told Mother. So these are things, very personal things, you know. That's it.
Did you know Pavitra well?
Well,
I knew him very well.
Well, I knew him, I can't say very well, but I knew him well because I liked meeting all the older sadhaks and interacting with them. So I didn't lose a single opportunity of interacting with them.
Can you tell us some more about some of the older sadhaks?
Yes, I can tell, but I am digressing. You wanted to tell me about Raman Maharshi.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
After telling you about Raman Maharshi, we'll terminate the interview. Next time when you come, I can tell you more things.
Okay. So, Raman Maharshi.
Raman Maharshi. And we were in Kadalur, and some of my father's brother engineers were posted in the North Arcot district. Kadalur was the district town of South Arcot, and Raman Ashram in the district of North Arcot. You see, North Arcot, and Tiruvannamalai is in North Arcot district. So those engineers, the engineer who was there at that time and the engineer who was in the very next district, they both told my father was popular with his brother engineers, said, you seem to be very interested in spiritual things. You've been coming and going to the ashram. If you would like to come and have the darshan of Raman Maharshi, we can arrange for it. Your stay and all that. You see? Because we are not the guests of the ashram, we could stay. Because government engineers can stay in government guest houses, you see. And has to tell someone. So in that term, we can arrange for him. So we went by car. And we went by car. Most probably once we went by car and second time not by car. We went there. And then we discovered, then those engineers had discovered that exactly opposite to the Brahmanashram. Brahmanashram was on the slightly higher at a height. Across the street, sloping down a little, there was a house, very nice house, in which people of my community lived. Saraswats, Brahmins. They knew about us because our community is small, everyone. And they said they can stay with us. 6 people they had there. Father and mother and 4 children. I had started wearing a sari. Early I started wearing a sari. The others were, Jayanti was skirt and blouse and things like that. So they were wonderful to us. They were so devoted to him. They were wonderful to us. So after arriving there, after breakfast, we went to the ashram. It was just opposite, climbed a little. And we went to the hall. It's a little different now, but the old hall where he reclined on the couch. And he reclined on the couch, so we were made to sit. So a few people were there, and I was we sat on the other side. Looking at him, he was at the other end of the hall. We were at the far wall. But since he was reclining on a couch, on his own bed, it was a bed, couch and everything, and propped up against high pillows. So we could all see him freely. No one in front blocked our view. As we sat there and I looked at him, I just looked at him, that's all. As I looked at every spiritual person that I saw, I had not had Sri Aurobindo's darshan yet, though I had had Mother's darshan. So I just looked at him with a blank expression, and immediately I felt a pull inside from the heart, pulled inside, and I was pulled inside. And I pulled deep inside the heart. And then I couldn't keep my eyes open. After that, I couldn't keep my eyes open at all. I was simply lost in a vast silence and full of light. It was a silence and light, dazzling light, vast expanse. This I had read in some books, described in the Upanishads as Hridaya Akasha, the ether of the heart. Because Akash, ether, is boundless.
Yes.
There are no boundaries to ether. In our heart, the ancients said there was a vast expanse. So that when you are there, you can touch any point of the universe. Everything is there within you in such a small place. Just as the Atman, the Self, is there, and yet the Atman is one with the Supreme Self, which is vast. I remained in that state. It was just wonderful. I'd lost all consciousness of my body. Even I was in Samadhi, state of Samadhi, I think, because Samadhi means the one who sits and then doesn't move. That is how the word is made, the etymology of the word. I remained that, didn't move. After what seemed a long time, I felt a nudge on my shoulder. Without opening my eyes, my mother whispered in my ear, "We are being taken for sightseeing the temple and other places in around the mountain and many other things." All I could say was, and can go. I couldn't utter a sound without opening my eyes. I only made that gesture. That's all. She understood she left. and they left. Then much later, after several hours, they came back to take me. By that time I had opened my eyes and I had been sitting in front of him. Then lunch was served in 2 rows. Men were sitting, all the people in the ashram and the visitors. And at the end of it, one end of it, near the wall, Maharshi was also given a mat, better mat. Strange to say, we were given seats in the same line as Maharshi, only our family. I don't know how it happened. The lines went like that. Everyone could see the Maharshi. My brother Suresh was just 1 foot apart. If Maharshi sat there, Suresh was given a seat there. Without sitting there, he was a boy, just a boy. He went on gazing at the Maharshi. Went on gazing and gazing at him. Maharshi looked at him, smiled and said in Tamil, "Shapdu, shapdu." Means eat, eat. I was just next to my brother, so I could hear and see and feel him.
How old were you then?
I was just not yet 13, nearing 13. We were there for 2 days more, and 2 days I fully enjoyed his company, and many other things happened. That will be for next time.
Okay.
And I told my mother, I love him and I adore him, and I like this direct path. Direct, no frills, nothing. Straight, go to the heart, go to the self, and that's peace. Know who you are. That's. But I said, he is not the one whom I am seeking. He is not the one. The destined one is. That I felt when I saw Sri Aurobindo the first time. 6 months later. 6 months later, I saw the one whom I was seeking. My Krishna was there in that form.